In every man's life, there's a quiet yet persistent question that rises just below the surface of daily distractions. Am I living with purpose or just going through the motions? Beneath the responsibilities, relationships, and routines, there is a desire not for perfection, but for depth. The Way of the Superior Man speaks directly to that longing. It challenges the modern man not to reject strength, nor to abandon sensitivity, but to harmonize them in a life of authenticity. It starts with acknowledging a simple but often neglected truth. Our deepest power comes not from controlling life, but from aligning with its flow. Many of us have spent years trying to be strong in the conventional sense, earning, achieving, providing, but find ourselves disconnected, unfulfilled, or uncertain. This book invites us to reorient. Instead of asking, "What should I do next?" it urges us to ask, "Who am I when all the distractions are gone?" The path laid out here isn't a set of rules, but a way of being, a lens to see through the clutter of social expectations. Masculinity isn't a caricature of toughness or silence. It's about presence, deep, unwavering presence. The kind of presence that doesn't just survive in the face of chaos, but grounds others within it. It's not about dominating others or even controlling oneself to fit a mold. It's about living from the core, from a place where one's words and actions are not reactive, but rooted. This idea of the masculine essence being tied to stillness and purpose contrasts with the ever-changing flow of the feminine energy, which may exist in a partner or within oneself. That contrast isn't a problem, it's a dance. The goal isn't to eliminate polarity, but to honor it, to meet the world not with defense or withdrawal, but with full-hearted openness. This begins with truth. Brutal, sometimes uncomfortable, liberating truth. If you are in a relationship and you are not fully present, your partner feels it. If you're pursuing goals that aren't aligned with your deepest purpose, your soul feels it. Life becomes gray, repetitive, and dull, not because something is wrong with the world, but because you're not showing up fully in it. One of the central messages here is that you can't fake purpose. You can fake productivity, charm, confidence, but purpose has a frequency. When you're aligned with it, people feel it. You feel it. Things begin to flow in strange and beautiful ways. Challenges don't disappear, but your relationship to them shifts. You stop resisting what is and begin responding from a deeper place. To live as a superior man doesn't mean being better than others. It means being better than your own previous self. More aware, more grounded, more true. It's the daily discipline of facing discomfort, not to punish yourself, but to grow. It's recognizing that fear doesn't mean stop. It often means go deeper. That resistance you feel, it might be the doorway to the next stage of your evolution. But to walk through that door, you must be honest with yourself, not just about your ambitions, but about your fears, your patterns, your attachments. Are you clinging to safety when your soul craves expansion? Are you staying small to avoid being seen? These reflections extend into relationships. Many men struggle with the tension between their mission and their intimacy. They think they must choose, either be fully devoted to their partner or fully devoted to their purpose. But this is a false dilemma. When you live aligned with your deeper purpose, your presence becomes more magnetic. Your partner doesn't want your constant attention, they want your full presence. 5 minutes of true connection can be more nourishing than hours of distracted time together. The message here is simple but profound. Your purpose must come first. Not because you love less, but because when your purpose is clear, your love is stronger, steadier, freer from resentment or confusion. There's also an invitation here to embrace the mystery of feminine energy, rather than trying to control or understand it completely. The feminine, in this framework, isn't about gender. It's about movement, emotion, creativity, chaos, beauty. It's unpredictable, and the moment you try to make it linear, logical, or fixed, you've missed its essence. Instead of reacting with frustration or retreating in confusion, the superior man learns to meet it with presence, not to solve it, but to witness and hold space for it. This doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or chaos blindly, but learning the difference between instability that wounds and unpredictability that awakens. Growth also means recognizing when you're holding back. Are you delaying your calling because you're afraid of failing? Or are you playing safe in your relationship because you fear conflict? Both patterns are ways of hiding, but your energy, your aliveness, comes from the edges, not the comfort zones. The world doesn't need more men who tick the boxes. It needs more men who are fully alive. Not perfect, not fearless, but alive, with their hearts open, their backs straight, their words honest. Living this way is not always convenient. It will ask things of you. It may cost you certain comforts. But what you gain is something no external achievement can match. Integrity isn't a moral badge. It's an alignment between your actions and your inner truth. When you live from this space, even your mistakes become part of your purpose. You stop outsourcing your worth to the reactions of others. You stop negotiating with your own soul. You become trustworthy not just to others, but to yourself. That trust builds a kind of power that doesn't come from dominance or status, but from depth. A power that makes people feel safe in your presence, not because you control them, but because you don't flinch when life gets hard. You breathe through it. You stay. Ultimately, the journey described here is not linear. It's cyclical. You'll forget, you'll fall, you'll resist, and then you'll return, again and again. That return, that recommitment is what shapes you. The challenge isn't to never doubt or waver, it's to remember who you are when you do. To breathe, to feel, to listen deeper than the noise. The real strength lies not in always being certain, but in always being willing. Willing to feel, to risk, to love, to lead, not from ego, but from essence. In this, you don't just become a better man. You become a clearer mirror for others. You remind them, simply by how you live, that something deeper is always available. That we don't have to perform masculinity. We can embody it, quietly, powerfully, truthfully. To truly live as a grounded, purpose-driven man, you must learn the art of letting go. Not of everything, but of the things that keep you from becoming who you're meant to be. That includes distractions, patterns, roles you've outgrown, and even relationships that no longer match the frequency of your growth. This letting go isn't a one-time decision, it's a repeated process of releasing resistance. It's recognizing that clinging to comfort often comes at the cost of your evolution. What you hold on to most tightly might be the very thing holding you back from your deeper calling. Many men stay stuck in places they've long since outgrown, not because they can't leave, but because they're afraid of what's next. But you cannot discover your strength without stepping into the unknown. That step is where the superior path begins to unfold. Your capacity to lead in your life, your relationships, and your work is directly tied to your relationship with fear. Not how much fear you have, but how much you allow it to rule you. When fear dictates your decisions, your actions become cautious, reactive, and self-limiting. But when you learn to feel fear and move anyway, something opens. You begin to trust the intelligence of your body, your breath, your presence. You start to notice how fear often appears right before expansion. That moment when you want to turn back or hide is usually a sign that you're on the edge of real transformation. The superior man doesn't pretend to be fearless. He just doesn't let fear dictate the path. He breathes, softens, and steps forward. This is where the power of presence becomes not just a concept, but a lived practice. In a distracted world, presence is a superpower. It's the rare ability to be fully here, not partially, not conditionally, but entirely. When you're with someone, be with them. When you're working, give your work the full weight of your attention. When you're resting, truly rest. Most people live in fragments, 1 foot in the moment, 1 foot in regret or anticipation. Presence means gathering all of yourself and placing it into now. That's where power lives. That's where clarity arises. When you're truly present, your next step often reveals itself without force. You don't have to control everything. You just have to listen deeply and act from that still point within. In intimate relationships, this depth of presence changes everything. Most men try to solve or fix emotional storms. But the truth is, most emotional storms aren't problems to solve. They're waves to be witnessed. The feminine wants to be felt, not fixed. She wants to know you can stand in the storm without collapsing or shutting down. Your gift is not in your solutions, but in your presence, in your ability to stay open-hearted and grounded, even when emotions swirl. This doesn't mean tolerating chaos endlessly. It means learning to discern between cries for connection and true misalignment. But more often than not, what your partner truly wants is for you to stay conscious, open, and real, not to flinch, flee, or fight. This capacity to stay, to hold space, comes from a deep connection to your own inner stillness. It's cultivated through practices of awareness, solitude, and devotion. The superior man doesn't just work on his outer goals, he tends to his inner life. He notices his habits, his impulses, his reactions. He studies them, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Why do I shut down here? Why do I chase approval there? What am I avoiding by staying busy? These questions aren't about self-criticism. They're about intimacy with yourself. The more intimate you become with your own patterns, the more freedom you gain. You begin to act with intention rather than reaction. You begin to lead your life from within. True leadership, after all, isn't about control. It's about alignment. When you're aligned with your purpose, people feel it. They trust you not because you have all the answers, but because you've clearly done your inner work. Your words carry weight. Your presence calms rooms. Your choices ripple beyond what you can see. The superior man doesn't chase followers. He becomes so rooted in truth that others naturally gather around him, not for approval, but for guidance. Not because he's perfect, but because he's present. The path is not easy. It asks you to shed the masks you've worn and face the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. But the reward is clarity, peace, power. Not in the traditional sense, but in the sense that you are no longer at war with yourself. You begin to notice how energy flows, how your body reacts to lies versus truth, how your breath tightens when you abandon yourself to please someone, and how it softens when you say what needs to be said, even when it's hard. The superior man doesn't wait for permission to be honest. He speaks with care, but also with courage. He knows that avoiding truth corrodes intimacy. Whether in relationships or in purpose, half-truths lead to half-lives. There is freedom in being clear, in standing in what you know to be true, even if it shakes things. Because shaking is not breaking. Sometimes it's realigning. And realigning is how growth happens. This depth of inner clarity transforms how you love. You stop confusing love with need. You stop trying to own, fix, or save others. You begin to love with spaciousness, holding others in their full expression without shrinking your own. This kind of love is rare because it doesn't seek to complete anyone. It seeks to celebrate, to witness, to challenge gently. It becomes less about comfort and more about consciousness. You begin to attract and sustain relationships that are rooted in truth, not performance. And when conflict arises, as it inevitably does, you no longer avoid it. You lean in. Not to win, but to understand. Not to dominate, but to deepen. This is how love matures. Not in the absence of challenge, but in the willingness to face it with presence. As this journey continues, what begins to unfold is a sense of quiet authority, not ego, not arrogance, but sovereignty. You know who you are. You trust your voice. You walk into rooms not needing to prove, but simply to serve. Your power doesn't come from status or validation. It comes from alignment, from the daily discipline of showing up, not as a version of who you think you should be, but as who you are, fully, freely, and truthfully. And in this way of living, you become not just a man others look up to, but a man others feel safe around, because they know here is someone who will tell the truth, hold the line, and remain steady, even when the world sways. That is the invitation. Not to become someone new, but to remember who you were before you forgot. To peel away the layers of fear, distraction, and conditioning and return to your essential clarity. Not for praise, not for applause, but because the world needs you clear. It needs you steady. It needs you alive. As you continue living with greater presence and purpose, something begins to shift, not just within you, but in how the world responds to you. People sense when you're aligned. There's a certain calm, a weight in your presence that doesn't come from talking louder or moving faster, but from being deeply rooted. You're no longer flinching in the face of discomfort. You're no longer rushing to fix or escape the tension that naturally arises in life. Instead, you breathe through it. You let it shape you. This is the quiet power of the man who is no longer defined by reaction, but by choice. And from this stillness, you become a better leader, a deeper lover, and a more honest version of yourself. One of the most misunderstood lessons along this path is about testing. Life will test you, your partner might test you. Even your own mind will challenge you with doubts, desires, and distractions. These tests are not punishments, they are invitations. Invitations to grow, to strengthen, to clarify. A common mistake is seeing emotional reactions in others as problems to fix. But often, especially in intimate relationships, these emotional waves are tests of your consciousness. Can you stay open while your partner is upset? Can you remain centered when you feel challenged? The test is not about winning or defending your ground, but about remaining grounded in truth and love. Not love as sentiment, but love as awareness, as presence, as spaciousness. This is where your purpose becomes a compass. A true purpose isn't something you simply write down on a list. It's something you feel in your bones. It keeps calling, even when you ignore it. It isn't always logical or financially safe, but it's deeply, unmistakably yours. And living in alignment with it doesn't mean you'll never doubt. It means you'll keep listening, even when the way forward isn't clear. You'll keep refining your direction, not based on what others expect from you, but from what your inner knowing whispers. That whisper might tell you to leave a job, start a project, walk away from comfort, or commit more fully to a path that terrifies you. But as you follow it, your energy rises. You begin to live from the inside out instead of reacting to the world around you. And that inner alignment directly affects how you show up in love. A core insight here is that love without consciousness is unstable, and consciousness without love is empty. You need both. Masculine energy, when healthy, is steady and directional. Feminine energy, when healthy, is expressive and flowing. In partnership, when these energies are embraced rather than resisted, polarity is restored. And polarity is what keeps attraction alive. Many people wonder why passion fades in long-term relationships. It's often because both partners become neutralized. The man loses his edge, his clarity, his purpose. The woman, feeling the lack of presence, steps into that space with structure, managing and organizing. Over time, both feel unseen and unfulfilled. But when the man reclaims his grounded presence and the woman feels safe to fully express, passion returns not as a spark, but as a fire that breathes. That fire is not always convenient. Real intimacy is not tidy. It will confront you, expose you, and force you to see parts of yourself you might rather avoid. But this is where real love lives, in the mess, in the truth, in the fire. And your job is not to put out the flames, but to breathe within them. The superior man doesn't run when things get uncomfortable. He doesn't shut down or check out. He leans in with awareness. He doesn't react impulsively. He responds intentionally. He listens. He feels. He doesn't make his partner wrong for having emotions. He welcomes them without becoming lost in them. He learns to see her expression as a wave and himself as the shore, strong enough to meet it, still enough to reflect it. This strength doesn't come from dominance, it comes from devotion, not just to another person, but to truth. Truth is the thread you must follow. Truth in your words, truth in your work, truth in your relationships. This is not about being brutally honest in a way that wounds, but radically honest in a way that frees. There's a deep respect that forms when someone knows you will speak truthfully even when it's hard, that your yes means yes, and your no means no. This clarity builds trust, and trust is the foundation for depth, for exploration, for intimacy that feels safe enough to go beyond the surface. Without it, you're just role-playing. With it, you're co-creating something alive. And what keeps that aliveness is your willingness to be uncomfortable in service of something greater than yourself. Growth is not convenient. Purpose is not always pleasurable. But it brings fulfillment far beyond comfort. The discomfort of stretching, of leading, of telling the truth, of choosing integrity. It's a noble discomfort, one that refines you. That discomfort will show up in the tension between staying small and stepping forward, in the moment before you make a bold decision, in the silence before you speak your truth. It is there that your edge lives. And your edge is not where you stop, it's where you lean. Lean into the hard conversations, lean into the unknown, lean into your deepest knowing even when it scares you. That's how you build the capacity to hold more love, more responsibility, more purpose. And with that capacity, you naturally become a container for others. You become someone others feel safe around, not because you have no fear, but because you've learned to walk with it. Your strength lies in your softness, and your power lies in your presence. There's also a deeper spiritual message woven into this path. The masculine, when matured, seeks liberation, not escape, but a kind of inner freedom that comes from full surrender to the moment. That's why practices like meditation, breath work, or solitude matter. They aren't escapes from life, they are ways of rooting yourself in what is real. When your attention is trained, when your breath is calm, and your mind is clear, you become a channel, not for your ego's desires, but for life itself to move through you. You speak not just with force, but with resonance. You act not just with ambition, but with wisdom. You move from depth, not from impulse. This doesn't mean you become passive or soft. Quite the opposite. You become decisive, but not rushed. Fierce, but not reactive. Committed, but not rigid. You embody a kind of masculine that is rare and deeply needed in the world, one that leads with heart, listens with humility, and lives with purpose. A man like this doesn't need to shout to be heard. His energy speaks before his words do. And so, the work continues, not in a linear ascent, but in a spiral of returning. Returning to your body, your breath, your presence. Letting go of what no longer serves. Choosing again and again to live not from fear, but from truth. That's the way forward, not towards a perfect version of yourself, but toward a more integrated one, where your heart, your mind, and your mission all move in the same direction. And so, the work continues, not in a linear ascent, but in a spiral of returning. Returning to your body, your breath, your presence. Letting go of what no longer serves. Choosing again and again to live not from fear, but from truth. That's the way forward, not towards a perfect version of yourself, but toward a more integrated one, where your heart, your mind, and your mission all move in the same direction. As your life deepens through this kind of conscious living, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Freedom is not found in escaping responsibility, but in embracing it with purpose. Not just external responsibilities like work or family, but the inner responsibility of being honest with yourself. The more fully you live from this place, the more you begin to see how often we avoid the very things that would set us free. You might avoid difficult conversations, delay creative pursuits, or distract yourself from the quiet pull of your deeper mission. But every time you choose presence over avoidance, truth over comfort, you expand your inner freedom. That freedom isn't wild or reckless, it's grounded. It comes from discipline, from choosing alignment over approval, and it radiates. People feel it in your energy, in how you move, how you speak, how you hold space for others without needing to be the center of attention. You become less interested in appearing powerful and more focused on embodying clarity. And this clarity is magnetic. It's not the kind that pushes people away, it draws them in. Not because you're chasing validation, but because people are starved for authenticity. When you live aligned with your own truth, you give others silent permission to do the same. There is also a lesson here about time. Most of us live as though time is infinite, postponing the things that matter, assuming we'll get to them later. But a superior man lives with an awareness that every moment counts, not from fear, but from reverence. Each conversation, each decision, each breath is an opportunity to bring your full self forward. Even small acts take on significance. Holding a gaze, telling the truth, following through on what you said you'd do, these become sacred. Not because they're grand gestures, but because they're expressions of integrity. And the more integrity you live with, the more power you gain, not over others, but within yourself. This awareness of time also reshapes your relationship to failure. When you're aligned with purpose, you stop fearing failure in the traditional sense. You begin to see failure not as a sign you're broken, but as a course correction, a nudge, a chance to refine. There's a line of thinking here that's subtle but profound. The real failure is not in falling short. It's in not showing up at all. It's in numbing, delaying, or hiding when life asks you to rise. When you live aligned with your deeper truth, failure doesn't sting the same way. You may feel pain, yes, but you don't abandon yourself. You stay, you learn, you evolve. In intimate relationships, this kind of awareness transforms how you show up. Many men expect their partners to be a source of constant calm, happiness, or praise, but a conscious man knows that his partner is not there to validate him. She's there to reflect, to inspire, to challenge, to reveal what he may not yet see. This isn't always easy, but if you remain open, even when it's uncomfortable, the relationship becomes a crucible for growth. And growth in love is not about controlling each other. It's about becoming more of who you really are. This is where true intimacy is born, not from convenience or agreement, but from truth and presence. And presence is not a passive state. It is active, alert, alive. It means being right here, fully, with whatever is happening, without retreating, without fixing, without checking out. When your partner brings emotion, you don't have to match it or diminish it. You simply remain grounded, witnessing, breathing, being. This creates safety, not because you solve everything, but because you remain unmoved by chaos. You offer a presence that says, "I am here. I will not collapse. You are safe to feel."